Role-playing games come in all shapes and sizes. Some of the most popular stem from the East. Final Fantasy, Phantasy Star and the Dragon Slayer series are among many that span decades. Many incorporate historic periods, plots and themes, but a large amount revolve around fantasy, mystical powers and creatures that are far beyond reality. Kingdom Come Deliverance is not these at all, grounded in history and reality like a modern day defender of the crown. Your tale begins as a lowly blacksmith's son whiling your days away in this peaceful village of Skalitz during the War of Bohemia. It would be a boring story if this continued, but things do not stay peaceful for long, and you find yourself thrust into conflict, danger, political positioning, and the effect of a new king's reign. Instead of defending the crown, you play your part in restoring it back to Sigmund's half-brother, Wenceslas IV. Driven by anger, revenge and loyalty, the plot builds and is a breath of fresh air with its realistic base and grounded roots. This really helps you relate to Henry, his plight and motivations, and also his fragility in this world. You have to learn your skills from scratch, earn money, keep yourself nourished, rested and healthy at all times. I enjoy the flow of evolution, the character building and skill learning, all without any fire-breathing dragons, super-powered legacy or cheap plot devices. If you enjoy deep and involved RPGs with a strong narrative and expansive choice, this is one of the best. Yes, admittedly, voice acting and some of the animation is a bit of a letdown in terms of the actual game and story itself, but overall it does quite a lot in very small areas of development and team size. It's a very impressive delivery overall, and it certainly sucks your time. Now, technology-wise, it is also in good company, with Crytek Engine being at the centre of its creation, an engine that needs no introduction since it melted CPUs back in the day with the infamous Crysis shooter. It showed a great level of flexibility since on console and PC. Its public highlight was likely the Xbox One launch exclusive Rise, which later hit PC. Then and now, it is still one of the best looking titles on the console, with great art direction, post effects including bokeh depth of field, particle systems, physically based materials and lighting, alongside detailed character models, motion captured and fluid animation, and a cracking dismemberment system. A modern looking title with Golden Axe style gameplay was the biggest drawback, yet I still enjoyed my playthrough back then at launch. Here though, the same engine is now delivering action across 4 console versions and PC, which offers a decent leap from the consoles. So diving into those consoles first, the base models we see the very same resolution and performance levels from Rise. Xbox and PS4 both count out at 900p, which I'm sure some may throw their hands in the air. But the image quality is excellent using the engine's temporal AA to improve it, and the stability by merging frames of movement into accumulation buffer, which comes at the minor cost of high frequency elements, but maintains coherency from frame to frame movement, giving less shimmer on specular highlights, fine alpha effects and even depth of field, which is used heavily during the game's mix of real-time and pre-rendered cinematics. Again, a shared process from the Roman Battler at launch. Now, these sequences highlight the motion captured system Warhorse Studios used to create these smooth and realistic movements, with likely hand-keyed facial animation, possibly with video reference to help those out. The in-game branching dialogue should come as no surprise. It follows on from games like Deus Ex, Mass Effect, with some repetitive motion, tired faces, and almost depressive expressions at times.
He's as thin as a starving hound and about as cheerful, but he can get anything you want.
To Sigismund. We're just doing what we have to do.
Our sons! I'll make those smiles off your faces!
Hardly a concern and par for the course on the branching dialogue these games offer up. The premium consoles themselves push this up. The Pro adds 44% to that pixel level, giving a full 1920 by 1080p output, with the X pushing an additional 77% on that to 2560 by 1440, which clearly offers the best image quality of the bunch, obviously aside the PC. Gameplay is also well crafted and detailed. LOD management is good, not giving huge issues of drawing, with incidental decor being the main cause of pop. It uses a pixel shaded dithering effect within the depth buffer to reduce where possible, and also help hide sudden pops of new vertex points. You can notice at times in horseback or running along open lanes, and considering the vastness of the terrain you can explore and unlock, it is a welcome sacrifice. Standing upon castle tops or hills still gives a detailed view of rolling hills, far off villages and adventure yet to find. The organic nature is carried into the weather and time of day system, allowing all 24 hours to pass, a key element in the title, with the passing of time being speeded up but not entirely skipped, much like the Witcher 3 system. It's a game I'm sure many will relate to, with the European setting and dense foliage used in both, but no magic here. This variety of lighting allows the game's look to shift, with global illumination cropping up on all versions. All console versions use SVOTI, which, like the Tomorrow Children, is a real-time sparse voxel octricone traced global illumination. It voxelizes static objects and then calculates diffuse indirect light and self-shadowing from a single light source. It can handle dynamic objects within a single bounce so long as they fall within the static object's voxel. It looks excellent here alongside soft bloom and bright direct lighting. The PC goes further with more particle volume lights beaming through windows and indirect light using the engine's enhanced SVOTI process. Still voxel based, but enhanced with more detail, AO, and between the high and ultra settings, it increases the voxel quality by reducing cone width and other elements. Now, the ultra mode creates more accurate bounce and AO, up to 2 bounces, and may even add specular bounce in there, but I cannot confirm this. The base mode, even on console, works with light probes to blend with diffuse lighting and provide the specular sample. These lose the interior lighting that comes through doors, casting internal dynamic shadows and illuminating it. This lack of internal shadows coming in from outside and that AO bounce you can see here on the PS4, but both premium consoles have this effect, as does PC, which is missing on these. The benefit it gives over base is far more detail in darker scenes due to the stronger levels of indirect light, directional occlusion and shadows. It's not instantly noticeable, but side by side here a more pleasing and realistic material interaction can be seen, but good PCs are required.
Shriveled up with the hunger.
Hey, youngster, come here.
Don't you start. Damn it, I'm hungry.
Storms can come on their own or be used to enhance story beats for greater impact. The murky material shader is placed on everything close to you, and the grey, gloomy skies help sell that heavy rain look that Europeans and certainly UK peeps can relate to. The simple frustum-aligned rain texture though is very weak, and at times it can look like it's going backwards. It would have been better to use a particle system with parallax calculation to improve this, as it does look cheap considering how often it is seen. Water ripples come from a blended pixel shader, giving ground and pools of water that build up a lovely splash effect. This is also used when interacting with pools of water such as small lakes, lagoons or even puddles. On the PC's highest setting, this turns into a tessellated geometric body of water, which again is enhanced over all console versions. These all use Crytek's SSR though across them all, bouncing colour, light and the dynamic objects, which is a welcome touch to the conviction of this war-torn landscape. Other incidental elements such as water runs and drips from roof edges, or the occlusion of rain as you go indoors or outdoors, is welcome, and show care has been paid here. Again, like melee elements, these are more pronounced on PC's best settings. Surfaces again use a blended specular composite which enhances specularity during the storms, but the low resolution of this can stand out at times due to the first person nature of the title. It is good though, and complements the PBR rooted shading the game is aiming for. Characters themselves are quite detailed, with Henry having stubble that grows and Alpha splined eyelashes even. One minor issue is the post effects can be incorrectly sorted in the pipeline using the deferred and obviously the forward rendered elements such as alpha effects and water and glass. This can cause some minor blemishes as you play the game. As the game intelligently uses a layered character system allowing heads, limbs and clothes to be swapped and shared, this can cause obvious clipping and vertex alignment issues at times, which all adds up and sometimes can be quite obvious and glitchy when you're viewing some people up close. It does look to be improved on the PC's better setting though, so it might also be down to the vertex. Geometry of characters is much higher on PC than it is on console. Now, it's far from a major issue, and this is not a large studio, so the results are still very good relative to the size and scale of this game and the team. Lighting is a strong point also, with soft shadows cast from torchlights and a shadow cascade and self-shadowing used often. This can be quite close within the frustum though, which means shadows can draw in within feet of you even on PC's best. But the dynamic light from your torch does really help detail and visibility in the dark, and is shadow casting at all times across almost all objects and characters. Which means it should come as no surprise though that this can cause frame spikes at times on the base consoles, and depending on their vertex count complexity, even on all other platforms. It all highlights the balance needed to deliver such a wide and branching story and world that gives trade-offs to parts. Texture details can vary, as can animation rigging, with the cutscenes being the standout and then the pre-rendered ones raising the post effects and animation even more. The downside across all platforms for those is your character's appearance is reverted to base during these, which can be obvious depending on how much you've changed Henry's attire during your story. PC textures are better sampled and filtered by default, with a HD texture pack DLC also available. One big issue is all versions that affects PC most is the cutscenes run at 31 FPS, be they real-time or pre-rendered. The drop in quality and frame rate is certainly of notice, and I can understand why it is a sacrifice. As consoles are all capped at 30, this has no real effect, and points to them being designed with those in mind from the start. So, this may annoy some PC players. Which all brings us to performance, and the base consoles first, with the PS4 being pretty much identical to Xbox One, slightly more precise AO from that lighting solution already covered, and a slightly lighter gamma output which you can see on greens and reds. This actually affects the Pro as well. The big benefit to that 900p resolution pays off in performance, with a smooth, almost locked 30 FPS with no pacing issues present in-game and the real-time cinematics. An adaptive VSync does help here with some minor tearing popping up, but it runs consistently inside the 33 millisecond target most of the time, and tearing is so rare as to hardly be noticed. The Xbox struggles more. VSync looks to be engaged at all times, or the level is missed beyond the threshold here. It can skip into 16 milliseconds occasionally, as can the PS4, but often it drops into 50 milliseconds, giving us sub 30 in cutscenes and action. But this is much better. Both machines can suffer a little from streaming, but the PS4 is the better performing version by far. Dynamic lighting effects and all those other elements can cause dips on both, but the consistency is the X1 is always lower than the PS4. One thing of note as well is all console versions suffer from loading. The PC version is like a lightning blast compared to them, so again, those differences between IOs, SSDs and obviously the CPU unpacking and depacking the whole game, as it's basically one large open world, all pays off with those loading times. Do be aware of that when you start a fresh game or load a new one.
Would not go to their deeds even.
German cats.
Now even the
I'll
Pope.
be with you, Henry.
I'm with you, Matthew. What's going on here?
Deutsche spelling shit.
What?
Just listen and you'll hear for yourself.
Someone.
Left. Talmurg is to the left, along the stream.
Now, premium consoles are much better. Again, PlayStation version winning out over the X here. The larger pixel reduction is an obvious reason to this though. I can't really see a huge difference in effects, but there may be a couple of LOD differences and possibly texture differences, but overall, even comparing them side by side, there's not a huge difference, and the X holds up well in gameplay, suffering more in those cutscenes. They are both very good though, and holding 30 most of the time, with again some stutters cropping up from time to time from streaming.
Used to by his side with a book to you. Used to by his side. In the end you were here. In the end you were here. In the bang. I didn't run away.
How am I gonna do this?
Do you need some help? Is that him?
Finally, the PC, of course, will be very much based on your hardware specs, but a decent machine is needed to hit premium level consoles. Settings wise, the base consoles look close to medium, with the lowest LOD, and premium are more like high, with the third rung on object distance, and the SFOGgy being close to enough PC's best to not really be of that much concern or notice. The PC version is definitely more accurate and the AO is better, but it's not a huge shift, as you can see from my examples. The cutscenes can show better detail, AO, etc. on PC, which is minor but welcome. A 4K 30 Ultra is slightly too much for this rig, but 1440 Ultra is between 45 to 60, with some sacrifices on shading and shadows, giving close to 60 FPS locked, but those cutscene drops are obvious. For best performance, set VSync off, set it to borderless, and absorb the triple buffer desktop to allow it to fluctuate at that 60 FPS level, which is much better than the in-game VSync option. If you have a lower PC than my Ryzen 2700 and RTX 2070 here, which are both overclocked, this will of course reduce settings significantly and also performance alongside that, so just be aware. Overall, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a cracking looking game on every single format. It uses the enhanced hardware of the console as well to improve clarity, image quality, and that global illumination system. And the PC version takes that a couple of rungs higher with nice additions and refinement to an overall beautiful title, and also boosting that frame rate to 60 or beyond if you have a rig better than what I'm covering here. Some bugs and issues obviously do arise, but this isn't a huge AAA studio, and overall, taking all those things into account, it's a cracking looking game, pushing technology hard and using that CryEngine very well. You just have to forgive some of those little quirks and issues that pop up from time to time. Anyway, that's it. I'm out. If you enjoyed this or anything else I've put together, please like, subscribe and share where appropriate, but for now I'm off to fight crime, or hunt for the crown. Ah, bugger it. I'll just go and hit the throne. I'll catch you on the next one.
Bishek? Who do you think we are? Franciscan brothers? We're here to rob you of everything you've got. I told you how it would end. You should have listened to me. This is nice work. The chief is going to like it. It's new, isn't it? And now, for the maiden bloodletting. Surely your father never would have imagined it would be your blood. I believe there's a word for such moments. The old man would certainly know. But I'm just a common killer. Did you help make it? No doubt you did. Such miserable luck. To die by the sword you helped forge.